You are listening to the 100X podcast, and today we have cooked up something extra special for you. For the very first time in a really long, hot minute, we are not talking about a specific brand, a specific chain, token, game, anything like that. We've got something unique. And to introduce the guest and our grandiose topic today, I'm going to take you on a quick journey. Flashback to 2023. About a year ago, I was working full-time in crypto and had been since 2021. I decided I wanted to revisit the collision of crypto and gaming. Why revisit? Because when I first started exploring blockchain as an investor, a creator, and an entrepreneur, I had originally tried with my brother Jesse to go all in on this little sector that was then called GameFi. There was no podcast, there was no 100X, there was no Web3 gaming, and almost everything recognizable in this space did not yet exist, or so I thought. So we pivoted to DeFi, we built over there for a few years. There's a much longer story there, which includes how the mystical Cesar Martinez joined my team, but we will save that for another time. In this specific story, the summer of 2023 is concluding. I start to notice something brewing. Actual games are emerging in crypto. Ones that I could play that aren't just Ponzi schemes and with extra steps and that I have to suck my friends into to steal their money and buy some NFT and never play a game and dream on Hopium. So we began to explore this space. We actually played a couple of these games. We bought a couple of their tokens. We started inviting some of these guests on the podcast. We had this gamer founder named Omar on that had something called Polka Starter Gaming. And then I had an AI mastermind named Wei who was building this cool AI game. And then this guy named Tony and Sam and Maria and Koji and Sinjin. And the list kept going over and over and over again. I would find these games that I thought, hey, this actually just looks like the most interesting game that I could find, the coolest ones that I could find. Let's bring them onto the podcast. But something really weird started to bubble to the surface. I noticed that all of these games were somehow connected with a common thread, almost invisibly linking the games or the builders or the thought leaders together. I felt like I had just secretly stumbled upon some ancient society or the mafia, or I don't know, something I wasn't supposed to see. But instead of being some dangerous cabal, it appeared to be a coalition of the kindest people and the brightest minds that I could find in crypto gaming. Every single time that I had one of them on the podcast and I thought, wow, this is the best episode I've had in a while. This person is so cool. I'm so excited about it. I found out that apparently they were all connected to the same exact group. And then that apparently they called it Web3 gaming, which I had never heard that phrase before. What the heck was this? It was and is a group called Wolves DAO. I am now almost a year into exploring Web3 gaming, and many of my favorite guests and games still continue to be connected by this illustrious Wolves DAO. So we are bringing on their founder, the first wolf, I presume, to lay down his thesis today on why the collision of gaming and crypto actually matters and why maybe you are not bullish enough on it. Welcome, Payton. I am so stoked to learn from you. Thank you for joining me.
What an intro, man. Gave me chills. Yeah, it's funny that you said all those specific people because, yeah, those are some of my favorite people too. And honestly, I'm just completely floored that they would join a group and then also share freely. It's been a long journey, but it's been a lot of fun, man. Thank you for that intro. It means a lot to me.
Before we dig into everything this episode has to offer, we want to highlight the awesome partners who sponsor this podcast and make it possible for us to work full-time on 100X. They're legends, and we appreciate them for supporting us. Let me tell you about our friends at Games.gg. And when I say friends, I really do mean that they are friends of 100X. Their CEO, Omar, was one of my first introductions to Web3 gaming, and were OG holders of their Gamers Lobby collection. We love these guys. They're essentially the super app of Web3 gaming. One of the cool things they've cooked up is a gaming quest system. You complete free quests for cool games, anything from retweeting a post to beating a mission in a new game, and then you get rewards, tokens, skins, whitelist access, all kinds of things. Currently, they have active missions for Goat Gaming, Captain Laserhawk, and Space Mavericks. Go slam those quests for free at games.gg right now. Let's talk about Reactor, a proof-of-work blockchain that introduces a brand new economic model, DePIN mining software, a gaming distribution platform, the RKR token, and their game, Minions of Steel, that's proving their thesis by seamlessly integrating proof-of-work token mining with gaming. Through allowing players to mine with their own GPU while playing, not only do they essentially make gaming free, they make software free, and they present an AI-proof income for everyone. If you want to take a glimpse into the future and get there early, explore Reactor's ecosystem at the link below. Yeah, it was accidental. I didn't know that any of them were connected to you guys. And most of the time, I think maybe once or twice I had asked like, hey, you're a great game. Who else should I have on? And so maybe they like threw a bone to somebody in Wolves Down. I didn't know it.
Maybe.
But I think
also, it's funny how you said the Web3 gaming. The only reason why I care about it, I don't care what it's actually called, but I have the YouTube handle Web3 gaming. And that's the only reason why I push it so hard is like, either I sell it whenever it changes and pivots it. But yeah, it's gone through a whole bunch of stuff. I was smiling whenever you said GameFi because that's what I called it, used to call it. And then I used to call it crypto gaming, NFT gaming,
blockchain
gaming.
Then
I got the handle Web3 gaming. And so I started pushing that narrative real hard just because
Were
that's
you
what
the
I
father
had,
of Web3 gaming? Is that where that came from?
I don't think so. I think it started getting like super like,
because I know Omar does that. I know
I think Omar did it. And so there was like this huge like specific pivot when like crypto gaming, NFT gaming was just like such a charged term that all of us just kind of like was just like, hey, Fugazi type of thing. And then ended up going for Web3 gaming, which is like, probably something that people can cling on to, but also at the same time, everybody asks like, what the heck is Web3 gaming? Which I think like crypto and NFT gaming are like a lot more like, I guess, descriptive of what we actually do, but it is what it is.
Dang. Yeah. Crazy. But now you are here. You have built the Wolves. I'm curious. I know the conversation today is not specifically about the Wolves. It's more about your thesis for crypto gaming. But if anyone out there from my sector who is not native to this wants to know who you guys are besides some like crazy cabal, what is the goal of Wolves DAO?
It's actually like I think you covered it really well. It's like a collection of like thought leaders or people that actually really care about like crypto gaming, Web3 gaming, again, like whatever you want to call it. It's a collection of those people that like share specific beliefs on what we do. So it's a collection of like professionals as well. So there's builders in there, there's analysts, there's people that are VCs, but there's also people like me that were like workers for game studios for like the past 3 years. And we just share different types of like boots on the ground type of things that have happened, like how mints have happened. We participate in mints together. So it's just a collection of like probably one of the most powerful search engines actually in Web3 gaming is actually in our Discord. I think personally.
Wow. Which is fantastic. And I think you probably have validity to make a bold statement like that, because like I said, every time I have a great conversation, 9 out of 10 times the person on that show tends to be connected to you guys. So yeah, I think you've locked it in. The reason I wanted to have this conversation, I mentioned to you off air, was that specifically, it feels like the more that things get crazy in the crypto world, the crypto gaming world feels a little bearish. And I use that term bearish, not even talking about like charts or numbers or just like sentiment is generally fickle in this space. I think there is probably not enough conviction, and maybe there's a lot, but I feel like there's not enough conviction in the world of crypto gaming, Web3 gaming. And I am curious. I want to get into why this space actually matters for gamers, for crypto users, for game makers, for investors, whatever. Like I want to understand why they would care about this space, because I have gone so all in on this space. I mean, 99% of our content was DeFi related for years. 99% of the brands we were building were DeFi related for years. And I didn't just pivot over here because I like to play video games. I do. But I pivoted over here because I see a whole bunch of value that I think the rest of the crypto space is sleeping on. And I would love to learn your perspective instead of just harping on mine. So
no, I think it's a sharing of building upon that. I think what you have really elegantly put out is a conviction on it. And I think a lot of people don't fundamentally understand how hard our specific industry is too. And I think when it comes to like the DeFi space or the crypto space, like ours is almost also built on the foundation of entertainment, right? Which is like, a consumer app, which those consumer apps, especially in like traditional gaming, also fail quite a bit. And I think that's kind of like where a lot of people don't have conviction in it. Not so much conviction. It's just like there's a lot of people that lose just for the fact that the games are like not successful, not fun. So sometimes it's really hard to just, I don't know, it takes a certain type of a mental fortitude to be able to like put your like, I guess, heart into something, into a game, and also care about the founders, and then just like, see them unfortunately have to like let go people or whatever. We just saw it with crypto unicorns. We just saw it with a whole bunch of people. We just, I think there's also a lot of like VC money and capital kind of like waning. And so unfortunately, it's also a very high amount of like failure rate in terms of like our specific industry, just because that's just how the industry is. Like 95% of games also fail typically. So that's probably also why there's bearish, but I think there is also a lack of conviction, because even amongst that like graveyard of like games, as you also probably will appreciate, is a plethora of like NFTs and, wallet addresses that point to people that are actually really for this space. And that's always been something that's a really big conviction for me. I actually don't really believe in the tokens and stuff are really cool, but it's actually always about the gamer identity with me. Always back then, and even as just a marketer too, you see into people's like, Etherscan and types of things, like this person is a huge like advocate for gaming. They have like, different types of NFTs that like are playable assets. And like, I always liken it to like whenever I was in COD lobbies in like growing up, and I had the blue tiger skin or the golden desert eagle, like all of that was, I want to be on the blockchain and to show that I'm reputable as a gamer, right? As like a Hayabusa helmet in terms of that stuff. Like I did all the skulls in Halo 3 with my friends in co-op.
You are speaking my love language.
Exactly,
right
but
now.
that's the beautiful thing, right, Matthew? Like it's in terms of that, like a decentralized ledger in which that you can pull your specific data from. And even if they pull it, right? Because then like gamers always kind of talk about like, well, you don't actually own the asset. It's like owning the asset is like nice, right? But like the actual receipts of what you have done in your gamer journey, like a dungeon master sheet, like for like your RPG of a story time that you've done with a dungeon master, and it is your character sheet, right? Like that is an NFT in a lot of ways, and it's a snapshot of something that you've done in the past as like an achievement. And even with like the Wolves SBTs, it is like a snapshot of your membership of anything. And I always feel as if like as a gaming thing, my point might be a little bit different for most of why I think like gaming is like really, I think another evolution when it comes to blockchain is actually using the fundamental tech stack of blockchain as a major like specific pushing forward of gamer identity and all that stuff. Because like I do want to show people that I have a blue tiger skin in Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Like I do want to have like Gears of War. I have like, over 10,000 kills with my Nashor shotgun. I wish all of that was on chain, but now it's dead with the servers that are in it. Right. And I think that future is way more brighter for me as a gamer. And also value accruals to those specific gamers. Once you start developing an identity, marketers can now see into your specific wallet and cut out a lot of the middlemen of per se of like having to kind of like delegate all of that specific data and like use Facebook, use ads, use Apple, all of that stuff. And now it can also be a more decentralized a world in which that I can look into your wallet, Matthew, and say, oh, you have like Champions Ascension NFTs, or you have a Shrapnel NFT. It's like, hey, this person's a FPS or a hardcore gamer. And then even like layer into some of the metadata that ERC 721s can actually have. And like, if you add like kills into them, any of those things, I think that's really powerful. And it's also based on the blockchain. And so anyways, I tangent a little bit too much on that one, but like that to me as a gamer identity, even just with my purchasing, I think is really bullish. And even if games die, at least my data won't, So
yeah, I mean, I think that alone is a pretty unique take. I have had probably 50 episodes now with people from the Web3 gaming space.
Yeah.
And I think Omar is the only one who has ever made a point similar to that one.
I like Omar. We get along well.
Yep. He's great. And so I think he's probably the only one I've ever heard a similar take. I hear a lot about like, oh, the Fortnite theory or the Modern Warfare, or sorry, Warzone 1 versus Warzone 2, like owning your skins, things like that. But the identity, I don't know that I've ever heard anyone harp on really well. I dig that.
I think my hot take too is like with the Warzone 2 thing is like, you don't actually own it, right? And I think that's why there's not enough education within like, I think why there, you also brought it up so well. It's like the conviction isn't there. It's like, as soon as they are brought up with, you don't actually own it. You understand that's a connection to AWS server. The crypto gamer is like, whoa, what do you mean? You know what I mean? Like they haven't like actually thought about it or reflect about it enough of like, the whole specific like receipts is really powerful, but people don't understand it as a crypto gamer because they don't want to go there because it scares them in a lot of ways, right? I think it scares them that like, oh, what do you mean I don't own my specific assets? Whenever like they don't fully understand that like, oh, to be able to actually put the whole data set of image, everything on chain is really expensive and you don't want to pay those gas fees. I think when it comes to that element, I think there still needs to be a deeper understanding of like the technology and what it actually brings. And I think a lot of people like the sexiness of gaming, but don't really want to kind of go and I guess fight the good fight when it comes to understanding it on a deeper level.
Yeah, well said. I mean, we've hit pretty well why crypto gaming, why Web3 gaming matters to gamers as people that play a lot of Call of Duty. I haven't in recent years. It's kind of gone downhill. I'm hoping Black Ops 6 will be good.
Yeah, I know.
So,
we always say that every year, right?
My wife
And then we buy it.
playing Black Ops, actually. So this one better be good, dude. My wife is dying for a good shooter again.
Nice.
So for me, it's like, okay, the thesis on why it matters for gamers really does matter a lot. And I think if gamers could catch that, they would start to care. Because a lot of areas where I have been burned by games that I loved playing and played hundreds or thousands of hours, those are solved by this space. But I think one piece of the puzzle that I have not seen Web3 gaming do well is convince broader crypto that their niche matters. I will definitely stand firmly and depressed on the position that the rest of crypto gaming the rest of crypto kind of thinks that we're a joke. There has been more than one conversation that I have had when I've told people that like, hey, yeah, I do still care a lot about DeFi. I still buy stuff over there. We'll do an occasional episode over there. But like, this is what I'm really focused on because this is what I've really got a deep conviction in. And there are a lot of conversations where it's like, oh, we can't buy into that, or we can't support that. That sounds crazy. And I think a good example of it, you mentioned GDC earlier. I know everyone was just at Rare Evo. I am going to go to Permissionless coming up pretty soon here. Nice. I know the AVAC Summit is coming up. And I look at these, and I gave these stats to another guest recently as well, just as an example of like, hey, broader crypto just doesn't take us seriously. Speaking of crypto conferences, that's where crypto meets the real world. Upcoming conferences, I looked at all of their lists of like, these are the speakers that are going to be at these conferences, right? At Token 2049 Dubai, we have 3 speakers out of 208 that have any relevance to Web3 gaming. At Consensus, we had 20 out of 678. At Permissionless, the one I mentioned I'm going to, we have 1. I think it's for Treasure. Out of 115 speakers, Token 2049 Singapore has 5 out of 177 speakers. Mainnet has 0 out of 70. I mean, essentially, I use that as like just a general example that the space just doesn't care about gaming in crypto. And we spend a lot of time debating about like, hey, which game is going to onboard the next million users or which chain, when we can't even convince crypto users who already love blockchain, who already love NFTs, who already love this space, who already love buying tokens, whatever. We can't even convince them of our legitimacy. And we're fighting over players who don't care about crypto and are afraid of crypto. I'm curious, like on your perspective, as to why gaming is actually a net positive for the crypto space and why the rest of crypto should care about this space.
It's a really good question. To be honest, I probably am not the best person to answer it, but I will try my best because I got my start in terms of like understanding Bitcoin and blockchain as the main use case. My brother didn't want me to go down the rabbit hole. He wanted me to keep up with blockchain and Bitcoin. I think when it comes to that, in terms of presence of like the network events too, I think there's also fragments of the game studios having to like really figure out where to put their, I guess, bets on, you know, in terms of the networking at Permissionless or any of these. Like there's also a huge network of gaming conferences as well, right? And so when it comes to that, they have to pick. They can't just go to conferences year round as well. I think if they do want to, they probably could get onto those panels or like, you know, BD. But I know working for 3 game studios, it's not a really a major specific effort to like go to speak at the crypto conferences, because the amount of money that it takes to be able to run their studio is very dependent on the other side, which is like more of the gamers, to be able to do that. Instead, unless like you have like a very small game studio as an indie stuff and you have an on-chain game or any of that aspect of things, and then you have elements of gamification or type of like game theory. I would say that's also where a lot of the issues come from, is that I think when it comes to people that are in the DeFi, we talk about Talkie Media or any of those guys, they are very poker, very like different types of like more game theory and gamification of things. Even like a lot of like the quests and all that stuff actually came from more of the DeFi space than it did like really come from the game space. And we actually adopted a whole bunch of things from the NFT and also crypto space as a specific one, but we also have lost some of the culture elements of it. And I think that's why they don't take us seriously, because I think we use it to monetize. And I think the money that we have given to our founders is also not the right founders to bet on. I should like say that very candidly. I think like when it comes to like VCs and the money that were given back in 2021, 2022, there was a lot of money given to Web2 founders coming over to Web3 that did not have the crypto bone in their body. They really used it as a way to raise 10 million, 5 million, 15 million, 20 million to be able to do that. And we gave them a lot of money, because actually it is very hard to make a game like it's very difficult. And I think VCs felt a little bit more safe in terms of giving Web2 founders coming over from Web3. But you also see the opposite now happening, where the Web2 founders have like really fumbled too. Like I would say, like in terms of that aspect of like, it's hard. All the things that you've kind of talked about, where like people don't take you seriously or anything like that, or like some of the NFT people, it's like they call them like locust or predatory or whatever. And like there's like this huge clash between like, you know, the Web3 gamer or Web3 game studios and then also the people that are in crypto. And it's because the founders that kind of came in that raised a lot of money off of that technology, that's like really off of all the buzzwords of like ownership, metaverse, all of those things, like we're not really what crypto people cared about too much, right? And so on that aspect of things, I think that's where like the great divide was that like we gave the wrong founders the money. But then there's also some like really like Web3 native founders like Paz from like Oh Baby Cart that has like done a tremendous job of like actually going the reverse direction of like coming from Web3 and using crypto to make purchases and then going into like more like Web2 and getting gamers on Steam. And I think that is like something that's really powerful. But to also like land the plane, because I want to get back on topic, is like, I think there is a level of like game theory that are kind of held from like the broader crypto space, more gambling, more like loot boxes and all that stuff. And whenever like I think Web3 game studios like lean onto some of the degen side, like that's whenever those people, the DeFi people or the crypto people, start being a little bit more warm to the idea in terms of game theory. We saw that with was a Wolf game. And we're kind of also seeing it with like Pirate Nation in terms of like on-chain stuff and everything like that. And I think the on-chain specific games are huge things in terms of that aspect of things, because everything can be forked, right? Everything was like more culture for like decentralized. If Pirate Nation doesn't do something right, they can fork it, right? Everything's on chain. And I think that's something where like the crypto people respect that. And that's also why you see more NFT whales or crypto whales kind of come into Pirate Nation or a fully on-chain game versus another. But it also doesn't mean that business model wise it's sustainable. So that's what's also very difficult, right? So that's my take, but it also might be wrong.
I have one more question while we're on this point specifically. You've painted the picture of what we've maybe done incorrectly in the past. So moving forward, if you just had a microphone to speak straight to the crypto world and say, hey, this is why Web3 gaming actually proves the positive value of crypto, maybe to a whole new subset of people, what would that reason be? Like if you could tell all of crypto, hey, the rest of the world is going to like crypto if they see X, Y, or Z in Web3 gaming, what would that be? Like, how would you win over the crypto hearts?
I think it's data and owning data. I think it's something that's why I really care about what I kind of opened up with like, you know, having ownership of at least the identity that you have on chain. I think actually works for both parties. I think crypto people really like that and understanding that like something that they have done in the past and who they are as an individual person can affect an outcome, which could be either through like governance or through like, a specific game development or whatever. But also on the other side too, I think gamers really care about their achievements, and they'd rather have that as a level of like a deeper level of identity, for that. That's where I think probably crypto people would probably respect a little bit more.
Yeah.
Other than like probably the gambling, and some of like the more like degenerate aspects of like crypto.
I'm
and
like
kind of
10% degen, but I think
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah, I think I am too. I think when it comes to like whenever I listen to like some of the DeFi stuff, is more like game theory, or if I listen to like
Yeah.
Bankless or any of that stuff, it's like it's more of like the global picture. I think the other thing that I would say is a very good crossover for Web3 is like the nation states and community nation states. I think gaming has always been a point for community, and having a digital landscape in which that can be shown, where there is actually interactive like digital nation state that people can actually feel and like actualize. I think that is also something that I'm like really interested when it comes to crypto, and that's
Well
also
said.
coming from me for community for Wolves DAO. Is like that's the dream, right? And we also see that a little bit with like I think our specific gaming communities within like the crypto gaming sphere are super interactive with the people that are also building the games, right? So the 100X podcast, the way that you guys interview a whole bunch of people, Wolves shine light on projects that we feel as if like should be shown light on. There's Paladins DAO that put on high level production. And then there's also like Wardens that are super high in terms of gaming, but also give a lot of feedback that actually shapes the outcome of the game. So I think like the digital nation states are also a super big thing for me, that I haven't like really dove too deep into, but I want to, because that's my love is community,
That's really cool. I have had in 3.5 years, I've had a couple hundred episodes on this podcast, and I have never heard anyone tie gaming to nation states. So first time I've ever heard that, and that's a win. I think that ties right back to what you were saying about gamer identity and why that's one of the reasons you're so bullish. Because I mean, if you boil the nation state all the way down, it is just identity. It's people wanting to identify with like-minded people that maybe I feel like the place I'm at physically, I don't actually identify with. And so I need to find people around the world somewhere else to identify with. Dude, if gaming inside of crypto can prove the nation state thesis, broader crypto wins. Yeah, that's fantastic.
I think it also like the traditional gaming market is kind of has done it, but without the financial element, which is super important to make a actual nation state, right? And so if there's a currency in which that people can transact, even if it's a soft currency that can lead to a hard currency later, like I've seen tremendous amounts of value come from the SBTs for just a affinity towards something. And we have a soft currency with meat, what's in the wolves that like people want, and that it is something valuable for them. I've seen it firsthand. And also, affiliating with something that's greater than yourself, I think is really, really powerful. I think gaming does that, like MMORPG, even FPSs, COD lobbies, you can say whatever, you can group up. But I think there's a missing element, which is like kind of the financial element, which I think crypto has in spades.
Yep. Well said. I really only have a couple more questions. One of them is on that financial element. So that was a really good segue. I think I've heard people from both sides of the camp. And so I'm curious your thought. Is there going to be like life-changing financial opportunities in crypto gaming and Web3 gaming the same way that there is in other sides of crypto?
Yeah. I think there is, if you like actually build a business around it. I think I have this weird thing of like, people that I got like really lucky of like life-changing wealth, like probably will also be the same people that would probably squander it. And so I'm always somebody that probably is a little bit more active and building skill sets. I probably wouldn't have worked for 3 game studios if I didn't feel that. But I do think that there is going to be life-changing wealth for people that crack it. And I think that there are going to be people that might make a few, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars off of like betting on the right horse. But I don't know how many horses they're going to be betting on before they even get to it. So I think there is. but I don't know if it
But
says
probably
sunshine and rainbow.
so from your thought perspective, it's probably less on like the DeFi element of like 1,000 opportunities every 1 month in the bull market versus, hey, if you can create something that is actually needed in this space, yes, that's your 100x opportunity. It's not just throwing some money at a coin.
Yeah, that's what I would like personally. But I don't know. I think there are some people that I've seen like really do fairly well in terms of like picking the right specific horse and doing that. I think you have. That's what's great about this space too, is like you can pick the right token or you can pick the right game and they can reach escape velocity and you can have a lot of that upside. But I think if you want 100x or 1,000x type of thing, is like you make something that's actually at this ground level, like a podcast or like content or even like a product, a game studio, and you break what
we'll make all of
needs
those
to be
eventually.
broken. Yeah, exactly. What you break into what this thing, like you solve the issue. Oh yeah, you got a million X there, buddy. And so
exactly.
That's how I think about it. But
I respect that.
I also know
that's solid. Do you think that we're going to see less when a bull market is fully flowing in the gaming space? Do you think we're going to see less investors converting from DeFi because there is less opportunity here? Like, as far as like for investors, do you think this spot is just going to be perpetually less attractive?
I think it's gonna be less attractive too, because like there's also not as many. I have a theory on why, and I'll showcase it here. But like I think also on the paradigm of effort to giving ratio, there's a whole bunch of like if you have meme tokens all the way on the far spectrum, the meme tokens are actually the ones that just give a lot of money up front to content creators, to like people that are super big in the community, all of those specific things, because there isn't an actual product. It's more culture. It's more like, hey, attention. And so they are very predicated on that specific group of people to really spread the word. They give more token allocation for it. And then you kind of go into like DeFi where like some network effects are really needed. So like you give more to try to start it up. I think gaming is like actually on the far extreme where they don't give actually a lot of upside. Right. Because there's so much effort and work that it takes to actually put into the product for that, right? And I think that's why the token percentages are like not 90% or 80% or 70%. We're getting kind of to the 50%, but I honestly think that's going to course correct because I think a lot of people are going to sell into that and all that aspects, and like the level of work that it takes to make a game is extremely difficult. And I think that's also why founders are a little bit more tight on the allocation percentages. And that's also why VCs are also a little bit more tight on their allocation percentages, because they're taking a lot more upfront risk because they actually have to put zeros and ones on code more than just a DeFi protocol or a meme coin, right? You can spend that up on pump.fun. So that's also why I think it's also limited in terms of upside, because the risk is not so much on the person, it's on the project.
That makes sense. I do think, I mean, maybe just to challenge that a little bit, I do think that DeFi maybe feels like, hey, it's a little bit easier to make something over there because we do see a lot of low quality effort projects launch, but most of those die. Like 99.9% of those will not exist. I have done that a couple times where I've gone back and just looked at like, who have I bought in the last 4 years, or who have I had on the podcast in the last 4 years? 90% of them legitimately don't exist anymore. And then every now and then I'm like, oh, cool, you're a top 100 token. Like we made the right conversation by having you on the podcast 4 years ago. But that's rare. And I think you could look at that and say, oh, that's crazy that you guys predicted that they would win. Well, yeah, but there was 100 projects that fell out that you have never heard of and will never hear of that fell out in the process there. And low quality DeFi projects, they're a dime a dozen. But launching a chain or something like that, that takes a lot of effort, just like launching a game, a quality one anyways.
I will say too that I'm very ignorant to the DeFi sector. So apologies if I misinterpret it or anything like that. I just like my circle of competence is mostly working for game studios, and the level of effort that goes into it. I'm just like, I never want to make a game. And that's like just because I've seen what it takes to make it. And that does not seem like very fun to me.
And I think that's valid. And part of my thought there is that like if 99% of the DeFi projects that I ever saw or bought into fail and the 1% succeeds, and it's actually probably a worse ratio than that, it feels like we're probably going to see something similar with the gaming space. Even though it takes this much effort, there's a lot of cool games right now that exist that probably won't exist a year from
Mhm.
now or 2 years from now. And some of these founders are so rad. It's not like necessarily the
they're
fault
amazing.
of them. It's the reality of making a game, especially
Mhm.
in a perilous space like Web3. How do you choose which games to give your attention to if
Yeah.
90% of them are going to fall out?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the talent is like really important. And I think that's everybody kind of says like the team or everything like that, vote on the team. But I also think that like people don't probably look too deep into the team. They probably look at the founder, which is like probably the most important. But also like in my opinion, like producers really like push and drive a game studio, PMs on terms of monetization, the community manager and the community lead. I think how I engage when it comes to like the Web3 elements, it's like if that person fully understands what business they're in, especially at the startup of it, where like, yes, they're a game studio and yes, they have to make a game for like a mass adoption type of thing.
Yep.
But like crypto isn't mass adopted. So the amount of, high ticket sales that is kind of needed for Web3, they have to have a really good salesperson, to be honest, like somebody that's like understanding the community that is going to be there front facing all the time. And that's probably what's changed the most is that it was very sexy to invest into people that were prior Web 2, right? Like they had all of this experience. They had amazing type of pedigree. They have shipped X amount of products. Web3 is just a different animal. I think fully understanding with them of really knowing if they have the chops to kind of stay, or if like they're just kind of selling snake oil. Because I think we have enough reps and sets at kind of sniffing out those specific people. And so that's really kind of what I look into it is that, okay, let me listen to the founder. And I've been a lot more patient lately, Matthew. I've been just like looking at them and talking with them and just like not like committing anything, but just like kind of monitoring what they say on Twitter Spaces. Are they like really hoping? Like Jiho is an amazing person, so I like kind of do him, Diego from Beacon, that are just like super big in terms of like being out there in the forefront. And also just like if that team like fully understands like what it means to build a community, I think is super important to me, especially when communities are being built so early. And I usually just kind of, I wish I had like some type of method, but I just have a gut feeling of when a community is like thriving or when it's not doing so good. I do some like type of metrics of like kind of looking at their Discord, looking at their messages, the interactions and all that stuff. But that's kind of what I look at. And it's also going deep on their team of if they can execute the things that they should do. Because I understand the right producers make a huge difference. The right marketers make a huge difference. And when I only used to kind of talk about the founder at the top. And so, yeah, I think those are the things that I look at, but I don't actually invest in too much things in terms of the gaming just yet. I think I look at the founders, and if I like them and I want to see their team, that's whenever I probably buy an NFT that possibly isn't like a release token yet or something. But that's about it.
What is fascinating to me is that you just gave a bullet list of reasons on, hey, this is how I choose which games I think are going to make it long term.
Mm-hmm.
And 100% of the reasons were about the team. 100%. Yeah. It all comes down to the team. All of your reasons, which weren't this, it wasn't just the team, but every single reason literally came back to, can the team execute? Is the team the right person for this? It wasn't about the gameplay. It wasn't about the tokenomics. It wasn't about anything other than, is it the right team? Mm-hmm. And I know you said you're not super experienced in the DeFi space, but that I would say is the key piece that I've seen over there, that what makes or breaks anything at all is this the right team to make this happen? An idea can be
100%.
phenomenal. If the team sucks,
Yeah, the team does suck. And like, I think you could get away with a lot without a product too. As like, we've seen that too, but I just feel as if, too many times. And I should say, you said like kind of the genre. I think there is something that I kind of do look in terms of the genre of game, in terms of like, can it break mainstream adoption is something that I'm thinking about at this specific case. Because I've also learned that like there isn't, I don't think there's enough people in crypto as it stands right now to be able to have a sustainable business model.
There's like 10 of us that actually play the games. So
yeah, and also just like the it's the burn rate for these game studios are too high to be able to have that much, like, unless you're going to sell like these off of like $100 a pop or $1,000 a pop every single, like, like probably big time is kind of the only example of it. But is that sustainable? Like, it's probably very much not sustainable, and you'll probably see that. But at the same time, like, that's something that's kind of needed to be able to sustain a game, and I just don't think it's there.
Yeah, well said. Man, this has been great. I have loved this conversation. I think I've wanted to pick your brain for a long time. I guess since as long as I've known who you were, and as long as I figured out about Wolves DAO, maybe not that long, but I've wanted to pick your brain. I think I am so bullish on this space. I spent literal years investing in other sides of crypto. And to me, this piece of the huge puzzle, this tiny little piece, is so important in order to prove the value of crypto to the rest of the world. Like, I think this could be it. This little tiny corner of crypto that we call Web3 gaming could be the most important piece of the puzzle, which is a really bold claim to make, but it's why I've staked my claim here. And I think it's why guys like you have staked your claim here. So
I know
you are not bullish enough. Wherever you're listening from, you're simply not bullish enough. You could be twice as bullish as you are right now. I don't care what that looks like. You decide for yourself, but yeah, you are not excited enough about what this space has the potential to unlock. Thank you, Payton, for letting me pick your brain. This has been fantastic. And I cannot wait to hear everyone's thoughts about why they are not bullish enough.
Roast me.
Roast him if you dare, but I'm sure Payton will have a good comeback to get you. You can find us next time on the 100X podcast, and you can find Payton at the links below. We'll see you guys soon.